And the day will rise tomorrow. I stand on my own 2 feet. We're moving in a more stage and sorrow, and just begging to be free now. So put your body into motion. Feel the sting and heat. Believe in the power of true emotion. All these past stops are still on me. Yeah. Another phenomena. 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 More pressure on it. Whoa, my love's so astronomic. Relieve the pressure on it. Whoa, my love's so astronomic. If you could measure perfection, if you could measure perfection, if you could measure perfection.
We have to stop consuming our culture. We have to create a culture. Don't watch TV. Don't read magazines. Don't even listen to NPR. Create your own roadshow. The nexus of space and time, where you are now, is the most immediate sector of your universe.
everybody, thanks for bearing with us. We had some technical difficulties. Our stream went down, but we are now back up, and we were in the middle of the news. So, Opti, you're going to go ahead and restart your Cyberpunk Red segment.
Absolutely. So the next headline is Cyberpunk Red, which some of you Cyberpunk fans may have heard of, has released. Cyberpunk Red is the highly anticipated follow-up to R. Talosorian's 1990 role-playing game of the same name, or I guess it was Cyberpunk 2020 back then. The alternate timeline dark future and predecessor to the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077 role-playing game or video game is now getting an update. Lots has changed for this new rule set, so I'm curious how fans of the older Cyberpunk RPG will react. Will they love it because it's finally getting an update, or they'd be frustrated by the changes? R. Talosorian, back in the day, was way ahead of the Cyberpunk revolution when it released in 1990, just a year after the Shadowrun RPG released. Cyberpunk 2020 back then struck me as having some kind of clunky and funky rules, but some of those were addressed in the 2005 version. But curiously, Cyberpunk Red has decided to ignore the 2005 version and instead favor Cyberpunk 2020 as a direct predecessor. Cyberpunk Red takes place in 2045 and acts as a lead-in to the events of CD Projekt Red's upcoming video game and cultural touchpoint, Cyberpunk 2077, in case you've been living under a rock and have not heard of Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk Red is available now for purchase in PDF for $30. You can get that at Drive-Thru RPG, or physically from your local game store on November 19th for $60. So, Oz, I know that you have played around with the Cyberpunk Red system, at least an earlier kind of preview release. Cliff, have you played around with that earlier release, or have you seen the new version?
I haven't really. I just looked over the PDF of the Jumpstart kit quite a few months ago. So I've been looking forward to this, and I have to say this release has kind of snuck up on me. I didn't realize it was out already.
Yeah, well, they were going to release it.
They timed it to release with Cyberpunk 2077, and then Cyberpunk 2077 is like, hey, listen, guys, we got to talk. And they pushed their release back to December, but R. Talosorian said, hey, nope, we're still going to release at the same time. But so, Oz, you are the only one who has direct gameplay experience then with this. So tell us your thoughts about Cyberpunk Red, or at least a Jumpstart version, and like, what did you love about it, and then what do you hope maybe gets fleshed out or maybe even changed during the final release?
Yes. So Cyberpunk Red, when we played the Jumpstart kit, and we have the actual play here on the stream, it was a lot of fun. I think that there are a lot of great rules that help make things quick. I think there were a couple of things where some rules just seemed a little all over the place, kind of hard to pin down, like why I should remember something. But then when you do, you're like, oh, that's really important. Like I need a reflex of 10 to do I forget what, or, I'm curious to see, because there were also, for the Netrunner, there was a set of rules for them, because obviously when you're going into the net, you need to have a couple of extra additional rules for what hacking is like. And it worked pretty well, if not a little bit kind of like it was like playing Shadowrun, where you had a bunch of different actions for being in the net, but then it was just a clearer version because you went through different levels of what they call like an elevator, right? You take the elevator to the next level, and you take the elevator to the next level, but you have to hack your way through it and fight ice or whatever before you can finally get to the thing that you're getting to. And that's fine. But I didn't see things to support other roles like the rocker, for example. Was it the rocker boy? Yeah, the rocker boy. And it's the Jumpstart kit seemed to imply that there were going to be special mechanics for them and for other people. So
like a mini game in the way of hacking for the hackers.
Maybe not necessarily a mini game with such stringent rules, but at the very least, just abilities and things to get followers riled up or whatever. Because we didn't really get that so much. We had to kind of narrate our way through it for Paige, who played our rocker boy. But I think yeah, I think I'm curious to see the rules in its full form. We've had we also had some situations come up where like we were able to mow down a bunch of people really quickly, and then when we had one security guard, just the one, we couldn't take him down like for the life of us. The system can be a little swingy because it's D10 plus stat, and your stat can be somewhere between like +1 to plus like 10, so or something like that. So I was just like, oh, this is, you know.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, so they've got a sort of hacking mini game like Shadowrun does. Like, does that ring weird to anybody else? Like, I know Cyberpunk, you know, the trope is that you have to have a hacking mini game, right, for all Cyberpunk games. But like, it does it seem weird to have one particular class or skill that has in its entire mini game, or one role or one archetype that has its entire mini game, but not the others, right? Like, is there combat people have their mini game, right? It's called combat, right? and then you have hacking, which is its own, you know. But what about the reporter? Do they have a mini game to support that? Do they, you know? I'm
curious to see. Yeah, I'm really curious to see if this book addresses other types of adventures and stories besides doing, say, edge runners or Shadowrun type jobs. You know?
Yeah.
Having the rocker trying to get things going and struggle as a band without doing a bunch of runs to kill the other band members or something every time to solve it, like say a Shadowrun team might. Or Cliff, having a reporter trying to find the story and put that together and put that out, and that be their goal, instead of, you know, trying to break open the thing and steal the big data to make money off it, like a Shadowrunner might.
Give me a great idea. I want to hire you now to write a splat book for Subversion, where you're just rockers, and like, you know, your community is the gang or the band, right? And like, that's it. Like, there's no combat, there's no stealing, there's no hacking. There's just you and like doing a show, right? And like getting paid to do the show and upgrading your instruments. I want that to be an entire book.
Well, I'm down with that.
I thought you would be, but yeah, I'd like to see some parody. You know, I mean, like, not that I necessarily want to de-emphasize combat, because like sometimes that's just fun, right? You want to just fight stuff, because you don't fight stuff in real life very often. You want to just, you know, have a little power fantasy or whatever. That's fine, but like also, like, it doesn't have to be everything, right? Like, let's expand, right? Like, the world is so much more than just stealing computer bits and stabbing people. Yeah. But yeah, I'm actually really, I know Rusty Zimmerman did a whole huge stream about Cyberpunk Red, did a lot of character creation stuff, so I'm going to check that out this week. But yeah, I'm super curious as to, especially what a lot of our Shadowrun fans think about Cyberpunk Red. I know headed into Cyberpunk 2077, the hype will never be bigger for Cyberpunk than it is right now. So I'm curious as to where this is all going to go, and if that's going to increase the popularity of Cyberpunk Red, or if it's just going to kind of flash the pan, and then like once Cyberpunk 2077 sort of fizzles out, if that's going to fizzle out as well. I'd love for Cyberpunk Red to experience a sort of renaissance, you know, and grow alongside all the other RPGs, because it is one of the classics. It's been around for a very long time.
100% agree.
And Artel Sorian seems like good people, and we talk about supporting black creators. Well, there's Mike Pondsmith right there. Go support him.
And also Sarah Richardson, who did the combat wheelchair for D&D. She was a big contributor here, and
nice.
Yeah, and especially when it came to stuff like, you know, using cyberware for disability reasons versus for combat monster reasons. That combat reason stuff, like if you're just trying to augment yourself to be superhuman, that's what costs your humanity. But when it's stuff like for necessity, like disabilities, or to, you know, because to be more comfortable in your own skin, like if you're if you're doing gender swapping or anything like that, like all of that stuff doesn't cost humanity, which is a very, very big improvement to a lot of the typical tropes of, you know, losing your humanity or essence or your soul every time that you replace a piece of yourself.
Yeah, and as cool as that is, I think that is a really good innovation. I'm like tired of that idea. I'm tired of the idea that like having anything like replacing your meat body is somehow makes you less human. I'm just not. I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, and I like how it was addressed in Shadowrun recently, in that all essence really is the essence loss effects is how magic interacts with your body.
Yeah.
And it's not any sort of judgment about your humanity. So I'm curious to see how Cyberpunk Red attaches that, because I like the idea that you're somehow less human, and what does that even mean when you're talking about, you know, having a big old He-Man side character arm that's a buzzsaw or something. Yeah, and maybe it's a little silly, but like, why would that change your consciousness?
Yeah, if you cut off my arm, right? If you cut off my arm and replaced it with, you know, a Tyrannosaurus Rex arm, like I haven't fundamentally changed in my personhood, right? It seems weird. So anyway, I want to see other stories told in Cyberpunk land without like, man, they're in danger of not being human anymore.
Well, I think maybe turn to Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, I actually like I'm one of those guys who hasn't ever seen Ghost in the Shell, so I should probably do that.
I'm not sure which ones to start on, but the earlier animes are just amazing, and I think they make the case that humanity or your ghost is not necessarily your shell, but without ever really answering the question. So really very sort of deeply philosophical cyberpunk stuff Ghost in the Shell is. I haven't seen the film, like the feature film with Scarlett Johansson. I haven't gotten around to that one yet, but man, the animes, like a standalone complex, just some of the best cyberpunk fiction I've seen.
It was Scarlett Johansson in the Ghost in the Shell movie?
Yes.
I thought so, wasn't she?
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Fantastic. I didn't know that. Well, well, those are just some of the things that are going on in the world of tabletop this week. If you know some other news stories that you'd like to discuss with us or that you'd like us to discuss, head on over to our Discord server at the shadowcasters.network/Discord. We have a channel there just for suggesting news items for this segment every week. Or you can email us at contact@shadowcasters.network, or consider becoming a patron of ours over at patreon.com/Shadowcasters. Definitely subscribe to this channel, wherever that is, and click the bell icon to make sure that you get notified whenever we have a new video or stream. I have been Opti, and this has been your tabletop news for the week. See you next time.
Bye. All right. Except if you're on the live stream, don't leave, because we are still doing a show. We've got more segments, more things to talk about. You're mute, Opti. Cliff, are you mute?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I wasn't talking. Can you hear me?
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't me not hearing anything.
Oh, no, I'm talking.
Okay, yeah, no, I hear you.
I
So
can't-
this is Opti.
Oh, I just heard Opti go.
Oh, now I can hear you. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We couldn't hear you either. We could hear each other.
Well, at least we finished the segment this time.
Oh my god.
Stream's still up, isn't it?
Yes.
We're still better off than we were.
I know why Bobby likes doing the news. That's fun. Doing the news is fun times. Hey, Thomas. Good to see you.
Hey, welcome. Welcome. Yeah, I'm glad we're able to get this going. You know what? I think we ran pretty long, so I might chop that up into 2 different video segments this week. Yeah. Part 1 and part 2 of the news. But yeah, news is fun.
Doing the inter-segment pour.
You know what else is fun?
Can you hear the rock riffs in the distance? It's time for The Stupid Game.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Let's do this.
All right, let's do
I'm
it.
so excited. You guys have no idea.
It's like the highlight of my week.
Rolling that
Especially-
1d12.
Especially when I win, and I've got a +1 compared to your +0s this week. So
All right, so the
I
Stupid
think
Game.
Bernie's going to take it.
Yes. So the Stupid Game, our patrons over on patreon.com/Shadowcasters Network can join in on the Stupid Game, $5 and above, to be randomly selected and represented by one of us to fight to the death, or possibly in a volleyball match. And we...
That's right.
yeah, we're gonna hype you up. We're gonna attach your name to whatever crazy character we come up with that you are going to fight to the death with, and yeah. So consider joining. So who do we have? Cliff, I'm gonna have you set the arena for this week, and then tell us who you're representing, who busts through as our first champion.
All right, so the arena is a Coliseum setting, but like the Coliseum, it's got all these modular parts down below. But this is a high-tech Coliseum, so they're shifting in time by these large unseen mechanisms, and sometimes hazards appear where like poison gas shoots up from a pit, or one is full of lava, or acid sprays out or down. So lots of hazards in the arena today.
Excellent.
Uh-oh.
And stepping out from one of the side arena entrances is Bernie Broig. Bernie is dressed in plate mail armor and is wielding this big old two-handed axe. I'm going to keep it simple. He just steps out. He's got the axe ready, looks around, surveys the dangerous circumstances, and gives the arena an approving nod. This isn't anything that Bernie can't handle with his +1 bonus for being a Rogue Tier Patreon supporter. That's right. If I roll a 12, you two with your +0s don't even have a chance.
That's happened before. That's so frustrating when I've rolled a 12 before, and then somebody rolled a 12 with a bonus, and I was like, oh man, that's awful.
Yeah, it was Oz. I remember.
Well,
I rolled like an 11 that time. So.
Right? We all rolled really high.
last
then.
episode, Opti decimated me with that. So anyway,
I won that. I won that last time.
yeah.
Okay, ready for this?
Do it.
James O'Neill has been away a long time. After the last bout, he retired to the frigid woods of his homeland to slumber in what his followers refer to as the O'Neill sleep. But before he could make it to his chamber, the sleep hit him, and he began to sleep where he stood. For 10,000 years, James O'Neill slept, his body and sentient chest hair being replaced atom by atom by the magical forest life where he slept as his winged donkey corn kept vigil. Now, James O'Neill has awakened once more, and he is the frigid woods. His sentient chest hair is now the living mass of the forest, and his quest to find a source of beer large enough to quench his ecosystem-sized thirst begins with the defeat of his rivals.
Right, I want you to roll first, and then if you succeed, that just means we died of old age waiting for you to spend your 10,000-year slumber.
Time and space mean nothing to the stupid game.
And certainly not to James O'Neill. And definitely not to Zachariah Wallace, who is nothing more than a hiss. And then like just this black cloud appears and he goes,
I am here to take your lives and destroy the world. So I'm Zachariah Wallace.
and spins around into a wisp and disappears.
Let's purge the world of this evil Zachariah Wallace.
All right, everybody, roll your d12s.
All right, here we go. Come on, James O'Neill.
Oh, God.
Yikes.
All right, I got an 8 on the die with a +1 for rogue status. My total is a 9.
I have a 2
I got
plus
a
0.
4. Man, all right, Cliff.
No.
Well, let's see. At least I get to crush. Who am I crushing? I mean,
Zachariah Wallace, the smoke monster of doom.
Zachariah Wallace, whose very existence is an affront to James O'Neill, and so he decides to fight fire with, or smoke with fire, and well, no, that doesn't work either. Anyway, he decides to blow his frigid breath onto Zachariah Wallace, freezing all of his atoms, and then consuming them before sticking them in a barrel for later aging when he gets his hops and his wort in place for future beer, and then turns his eyes on Bernie Broig for another victim to start making his beer with.
Zachariah screams,
Damn you, James O' Nature! I will return one day and destroy you!
I'm counting on it. It'll be a strong brew. All right, then he points at Bernie Broig. You're next.
All right, Bernie Broig leaps from one platform onto another as his previous one lowers down into a lava pit. Stands forth in front of the great beast that is James O'Neill, raises his axe and says, "Oh, it's a forest I'll be fighting, eh? It's a good thing I brought an axe!" And he just goes to town, unstoppable, until the job is done.
Create this epic backstory for a forest, and you're like, I have an axe.
10,000 years pass.
Nothing can stop me except for that. I hope you build a very nice house.
10,000 years later, deforestation wipes out James O'Neill.
I feel so terrible for that.
He
Not
makes
terrible enough.
pamphlets. James O'Neill.
Oh, goodness.
Not terrible
was
enough
awesome.
to not give Bernie Broig that well-deserved win.
Congratulations, Bernie. That was, I mean, defeating James O'Neill is always something to write home about. To write home about on the paper made from James O'Neill's body.
Yes, thank you so much. And if you would like to participate in the stupid game in chat, make sure you join us on patreon.com/Shadowcasters Network, where you can do one of the Patreon tiers, get yourself a bonus for the stupid game, and be entered for the random drawing where you too can be a forest or a smoke monster or a deforesting human.
I only kill forests trying to kill me.
Right?
All right, so I'm going to run that stinger. Let's do it. 3, 2, 1.
That's a little barbershop trio right there.
Right?
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
Hello, my
stupid
ragtime
babe.
girl. It's a game that's stupid, and we're going to play it. It's the stupid game. Yeah.
Did I ever tell you guys I was big into barbershop quartet in high school?
Were you
No.
in one? Or
Yeah, I even went to a speb school meeting.
I don't know what that
what
is.
meeting?
The Society for the Preservation and Encouragement of Barbershop Quartet Singing in America. SPEBSQUA. It's a real thing.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yep.
Like, I'm not a-
I think
I'm
it
not-
started when I was, what musical was it? It's been so long now. I want to say it was, a Music Man. Duh. Yep. I was the first tenor of the Barbershop Quartet, and our group kept doing it for a few years, went to still an ensemble, and always did well. It was fun. I
Nice.
kind of miss it. I kind of miss singing with people at all, because that's not a thing you can do anymore in this apocalyptic future.
Yeah, my kids are in School of Rock, right? Like if you've seen the Jack Black type thing, it's an actual like thing that you can do. Like they go and they learn songs as in instruments and stuff like that, and then like they have like concerts twice a semester or whatever. So yeah, they're really struggling with being able to do that because they really love it.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Fun piece of trivia.
I've also been in a black metal band.
That I did know
Nice.
about you. Was it called? What was it called again? It wasn't Slayer, right? It was
Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. That's what it was.
Nice.
Where I got Slayer from.
That's cool. Because Slayer's an actual band. And I don't think Cliff would have.
I was not a band member in Slayer. No.
Slayer of Slayers.
As fun as that
It's
might
a-
have
it's a
been,
cover
my
band.
parents would not have allowed me to play at that age in a band.
Well, you can call yourself Forest Slayer now. All right, let's do this segment on Bluebeard's Bride.
Cool.
All right, Opti, you can go ahead and lead me in.
All right. Let me find out how to do that. All right. On this next segment, we have Oz, who is going to give us a report on Bluebeard's Bride. Oz, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
All right. Thanks, Opti. So I've heard Bluebeard's Bride come up a lot, especially in indie circles, as an excellent horror RPG, an excellent Powered by the Apocalypse RPG, an innovative RPG, but I didn't really know anything about it past its name. Halloween, of course, is what brought me to finally give it a glance, and I was sucked in. The book is gorgeous aesthetically, and the writing is simply poetic, while also being instructional, evocative, and effectively very creepy. I knew I had to share this on our show, so that we can be all aware of this game's existence and hopefully intrigue our viewers enough to try it out. So, Bluebeard's Bride is a Powered by the Apocalypse tabletop RPG of supernatural, psychological, and feminine horror set in a dark fantasy tale meant to be played as a one-shot. The players each play a competing voice in a single newlywed bride's head, agreeing or fighting with each other as they explore their husband Bluebeard's house, discovering the horrific fates of his countless previous brides. Each voice is called a sister, and sisters are playbooks with their own special moves, evoking archetypes from Jungian psychology. The animus is bravado and independence, fatale is wiles and sexuality, mothers is protection and punishment, virgin is trust and hope, and witch is magic and wickedness. It's important to define feminine horror because it's a term that I learned from this game. Feminine horror amplifies and externalizes the often invisibilized fears and difficulties women face. Things like a lack of agency and autonomy, the risks and threats of violence, sometimes sexual violence, gaslighting, mental abuse, body dysmorphia, victim shaming. The movie Rosemary's Baby is, for example, a great example of feminine horror. Rosemary believes her husband has sold her off to her neighbors to be impregnated by Satan, and even though she keeps finding things that seemingly confirm her suspicions, everyone acts normal enough to make her think she's crazy. This is an all-female writing team behind Bluebeard's Bride, so trust that they have taken great care to acknowledge that safety tools, such as the X card, will go a long way to making sure that no one is emotionally overwhelmed at the table. They also acknowledge that you'll need the right group with the right mindset, willingness, and expectations to play something like this, and it's okay that this game is not for your usual game group. However, with all those warning labels raised high, this game is fun in a very dreary, twisted, and disturbing way. What's especially great about this game is that it's an incredibly collaborative storytelling experience. Powered by the Apocalypse games all have the motto, play to find out what happens. And Bluebeard's Bride takes that motto and goes ham. So for example, whenever the bride wants to go to a new room in the mansion, they describe the key on the key ring that opens that door in as plain or fantastical way as they want. And the game master, or the groundskeeper as the game calls them, improvises the room and its contents solely based on the player's description of its key. This means that you, as the groundskeeper, never prepare any scenes ahead of time. You only react to what the players give you. As a matter of fact, this game does an amazing job of giving GMs tools to improvise everything. Between an hour or so of collaboratively creating the bride's history and the contentions between the sisters in her head, moves where questions get asked of each other in order to inspire and build on each other to create even more horrific imagery, and GM inspiration sheets of ideas that elevate the feminine horror themes, you can come to the table as a blank slate. You just bring the play materials and get started, and be just as surprised and horrified as your players at what gets created. Speaking of moves, one thing I really appreciate about Bluebeard's Bride is that there isn't an overwhelming amount of moves. Everyone has access to 3 communal moves called maiden moves, and they can pick one of 3 face moves from their playbook, and that's it. The communal maiden moves don't even require rolls. They're purely narrative moves that help investigate their surroundings or calm someone down. Only the player who holds the ring, a token that gets passed around to represent who currently has the most control over the bride's direct actions, gets access to a special set of 5 ring moves and 2 exit moves. It's only the special ring moves that require rolls and force you to pass the ring. And that's all you need. As your table's bride explores Bluebeard's mansion, each room births a horrific story. Whoever holds the ring can leave with a token from that room, such as a hand mirror or a locket or a robe, and they have to assign meaning to that token. Is it a token of Bluebeard's faithfulness or a token of Bluebeard's disloyalty? The catch is that while it's easy to label everything as a token of disloyalty, because duh, each time you do, all the players take a point of trauma. But if you can convince yourselves this token proves that Bluebeard is trustworthy, all the players heal a trauma. Once your character has 5 trauma, you shatter. The sensibility of your voice fragments from the others, and your only participation is to make things worse for the bride by saying vicious, contrarian things to convince the remaining sisters to make uglier choices, as well as answer questions from the groundskeeper to make an encountered horror even worse. Once the bride has collected 3 tokens of faithfulness or 3 tokens of disloyalty, the endgame triggers, where the bride makes her final choice. Does she open the one forbidden room in the house or only look through the keyhole? Does she run to town and try to get help or just run away or hide? And if all the sisters have shattered, the bride becomes another horror in the mansion. How does she try to eternally antagonize or please Bluebeard? I haven't played Bluebeard's Bride yet, but I did watch an excellent actual play on Hyper RPG run by one of the designers herself, Whitney Beltran, also known as Strix. I highly encourage you all to watch it to get a sense of this game at its best, with both chillingly disturbing narratives and utmost respect of the players at the table. Long story short, if you want a disturbing and imaginative psychological horror RPG with little to no preparation required, you must check out Bluebeard's Bride. So that was a lot. And here's the thing. I really want to play this game. I really want to run it too, just to like give myself the opportunity to play around with more improvisation of horror and building upon each other. I find improvisation is really easy when you have seeds to kind of grow that tree from. But I also feel I'm not, as a cis male, right? I don't feel like I should be the one running this game. I feel like I want to really put this in the hands of someone who has female experiences to really dive deeper into something that I personally haven't experienced. But I'm curious to hear what you all think about this game.
This game is 98% not for me. I think that it sounds amazing. Like everything that you said about it sounds great, and I'm definitely going to check out that actual play with the Strix. But I think I have too much of a complicated and awkward sense of self to put myself as a feminine voice in a game of semi-sexual horror. Like, I just don't think that that's something I could possibly feel comfortable with. But it's fascinating, and the game mechanics were like screaming at me at how cool that is and how cool it sounds.
Yeah. I mean, I almost kind of want to consider, because one of the things that I got from the actual play is that it's the game encourages all genders to experience what this is like. Now, as a GM, as the groundskeeper, if you are male, my thought is that you get to, and this is, it's touchy, but you get to bring in a lot of what you know men do to women into it to then create that story and atmosphere. But I understand where that hesitation comes from.
Exactly what I would not want to do.
I know. But if everyone is playing with X cards, safety tools, especially lines and veils. The book didn't bring up lines and veils, but that's another safety mechanic that I think is especially important. Like, let's talk about, when we're talking about violence, sexual violence, lack of autonomy, etc., like how far can we go before we're like, no, stop, right?
Yeah.
Having that ahead of time allows you to push where you need to push, but without going overboard. And if you do go overboard, tap that X card, retcon, go back.
Yeah.
I really
Like I
love
said,
the
yeah.
idea of playing a game where you're each different aspects of a character. Much like what was that Pixar movie that came out a few years ago?
Inside Out.
Inside Out, yeah. So this is like a dark Inside Out sort of thing, and I would love the idea of playing this with a number of different tones. But that said, I'm intrigued by the idea of exploring this from a gender-specific experience and exploring experiences of a gender that are not my own, represented in a game. But also, I'd want to be careful to just make sure to keep in mind that those are not those other gender experiences. Those are me experiencing something that's designed to feel similar in a game context. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. If it was a learning experience,
I would
right,
never
where you were, where like the point was for you to like put yourself in a position where men aren't normally put. Like I get that, but like the line between that and exploiting women's feelings for my own entertainment is so razor thin right here. Like
I'm not so worried about that line because there's really just I don't see that side of things as being entertaining. So it would be deeply uncomfortable.
Right.
And maybe that would be fun to experience with the right group, but I could not imagine wanting to stream or actual play this game. I would not want anyone other than the people in the room with me observing and judging our interactions because they would be so intimate and probably easily taken out of context.
And
I
think
want to
that's
support a group of women playing this actual play on our channel. That's what I want to do.
I would
wanna
love to
watch
see that. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, like the book says, if it's not for your player group, that is okay, right? Like this is an experience that is it can be a very specific experience, and it is important that everyone feels safe, right? And if we don't feel safe playing this publicly, which we shouldn't, because that's not our experience to tell. When we're doing it for mass consumption, right, and entertainment value, like we are not an authoritative voice on what those experiences are, and therefore are not necessarily the best to model that kind of behavior of how to best play this game, to be sensitive, etc. But yes, being able to play this on your own, absolutely, go for it. Play this in private. It's fine.
But again, I can't overstate how clever and how interesting the game mechanics seem to me. What Cliff said about like everybody playing a faction of a character is so novel to me, right? Where like normally you have fighting depending on what the group is going to do, but like the mindset for that sort of decision making changes, right? Where there's no deadly conflict, right? Like there's no my will versus your will. It's all like, well, whoever, I don't know, like the end result of like making an action happen, right? Making the bride do something that feels on the whole like a totally different experience than simply getting your way as the paladin and leading the group through a door. Like that just, it's a totally different like mindset and experience, it seems like. And so I would really like to see this played. I'd really like to play something like that, because that just sounds fascinating.
I also really love how it works such that if you want to exercise your power to do something big and influential, to make the bride do something and roll the dice, you also have to then give up that power.
Yes. And also, something that I think that I didn't get to mention is there is a move called when you, the player, visibly shiver from fear. If you're the one holding the ring, if you are visibly shivering from fear, the groundskeeper gets to trigger a move against you to try and get you to pass the ring to someone else.
You know what would be interesting as an experiment in game mechanic making is what if what if you had a game that had the similar mechanics, but like the player, like the bride in this case, was also a player and had to interpret the impulses from, you know, the different parts of the brain, and then take that impulse and then act it out, right? Like, so you would have like a little side game over here, and then they would say, okay, you have to act on this impulse, and then the player would get to, you know, I don't know, like improv,
like have somebody like another player at the table actually be the bride.
Yeah, like so that movie Inside Out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it actors, like literal actors, right? You had the people in the brain, and then you had the actor that is the girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all actors, right? So what if that was like an RPG, right? Like you had the people sort of making the decisions, and they couldn't just say open the door, right? They had to say, this is the emotion we're going to go with, and here's why. And then the player who controls the person would take that emotion and turn it into a role play action.
Or what if the person who you were a part of and controlling as the players is the GM? And all the players are components of that person.
Oh, wow. What an inversion.
Yeah.
The GM interprets what those actions are and what things do, which might not be what the people inside the mind or whatever, the portions even intended. And then there's this interplay between them. I don't know. I think that could be a fun game.
That could be something fun.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting things. I know that there's also a game called Everyone is John, where everyone is John, but I think that one is about everyone plays different versions of John in time and space, because there's like, it's like time travel John. I don't know. That's what I know. It's a 1-page RPG. It sounded kind of interesting. So anyway, I don't know. But there's lots of great potential here in Bluebeard's Bride if you feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
And actually, you know what? Even if you're not comfortable, just read it. Read it at least and understand what this game can do. Because
especially if you're not comfortable.
especially
maybe that's the point, right? Like maybe if you're uncomfortable with it, like myself, maybe you need to check it out and figure out why.
All right, so if you liked this and want to see more of this kind of content, let us know in the comments, like, share, and subscribe. Links for everything that you need to know about Bluebeard's Bride will be in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. All right. Segment done.
I really can't say enough about how cool that sounds. I'm really, really curious to see it played. Did you say that it was Hyper RPG that did
Yes, Hyper RPG did this was like 4 years ago. This was like right when the game was being kickstarted, and it blew through everything that it needed, and it made like 80 grand to make the game or something.
Nice.
Like that. So
good for her. Right, like I want to see like maybe like a different version of it too. Like I wondered if anyway, I like Bluebeard's Bow, right? Like it's just like a gay version, right? Where like I could step into that a little easier, I think, in my head, right? Like I can totally be a gay guy, but I don't identify with women at all. Right? Like I could totally understand where like if it's a really hot blue-bearded pirate, I really think I could like get into that mindset. What I'm also hearing is that like part of the whole point is the vulnerability of being at the, I don't know if mercy, like I don't know if this is if I'm reading into it, but being at the mercy of somebody who's a couple of different power levels removed from you. Right. And I don't know what that's like. Right. Like anytime somebody tries to put a power move on me, like I quit that job. Right. Or like I move out of state. Like I just don't do well with that. Like I won't let people control me. So I don't know what that's like. I don't ever feel that way. So
I'm not gonna lie, Bluebeard's Bow. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to play that now.
No.
I could run that. That I can run.
You change blue balls bow
Blue
or
balls.
something like that.
Oh God. Okay.
Oh, that's kind of weird. That's got a different kind of ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's do some Q&A.
Maybe workshop that a little bit. I'll do that. or better yet, don't. So some of the questions we had. Let me see if
I say
any
we
have
just do
come
one
in.
because we're coming up to about 11 o'clock. So, and I know
Oh, okay, cool.
we lost some time, but from the technical issue. So,
All right, this one's from Nabruik from last week. We didn't get a chance to do it. I think it came in during the show. But he says, or they say, how do you balance tactical combat and story-driven encounters? Just had a guy quit a D&D 5e game because he didn't like how we ran the tactical initiative order or combat encounters. He felt that they should be handled through dialogue with little or no use of the initiative order. So have you encountered this stuff before? Cliff, we'll start with you. Like a two-part question, right? Have you encountered people who get upset about sort of non-cinematic combat or not? And if you did, how do you balance the nitty-gritty tactical stuff with a more cinematic or story-driven combat encounter?
Well, as a GM, I like to make sure that everyone present has the opportunity to engage with the game. I don't try to force them to, but I mean, I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to do something, has the opportunity. Oftentimes that means people take their turns, right? We're just talking about in Cyberpunk, we have the hacker takes their special game, and then the combat people, they have their game, and there's a lot of times when not everyone can really be involved in taking the center stage on what sort of situation is happening because it's social or technical or combat. So I think it's important to balance opportunities for players to engage meaningfully with the story. But I don't worry so much about balancing tactical versus story-driven encounters because it's really up to the players what a lot of that stuff turns into. I think if I were to take this description you said at maybe the best possible interpretation for the person who got upset and left because it didn't like how it was handled, maybe they were trying to resolve combat encounters that were in the adventure as a combat encounter with social skills or some sort of clever thing, and like everything they do just got shot down. Yeah, that would suck. But I mean, if they just wanted to never roll initiative and not let the people who want to do this tactical combat fun have their fun, then that's no good. So
yeah, I mean, it is very important to note that, right? Because if he from how this is phrased, right? Because we don't know how this dynamic was, but like it seemed like because he didn't want to roll initiative and because he didn't want to he just wanted to kind of do that cinematic style, and he just decided to leave. And I'm like, well, then D&D 5e is probably not the game for you. I mean, I'm sorry, like I can understand that you can make it more cinematic or less. There's like a scale that you can use, I think, but it also undermines a lot of the mechanics. Like all these people who had to read pages upon pages upon pages of like stats and spells and game effects and all that, and like build them into their character, and then they don't get to use them because you want to play more loosey goosey. I'm sorry, just play a different game.
Let me ask this. I have heard people refer to the critical role effect. Haven't seen much, if any, of Critical Role, but do they do things a little bit more cinematic? Or do they play things pretty much by the book?
They play by the book. They just have a lot of like naturally narrative flair added onto all of it. But yeah, they still play by the rules. I don't see them really bend.
So if that's the case, I'm wondering, and that was the only thing I could think of for why somebody would come into a D&D game with that attitude. like where did you get idea that that's supposed to be how it goes, right?
I don't think we're getting a very good representation of their perspective.
Sure.
I think there's more to it. I think if people just want the game to be played just the way they want to play it the whole time, well, I'm not sure if any role-playing game is right for them, but I'm not sure if anybody's really totally like that.
Right.
It's more likely that there are some other underlying conflicts or problems besides just the balance of combat versus narrative storytelling.
Yeah, and I've had that at a the reverse thing actually when I started a Shadowrun 4E game with some of my buddies a few years ago, and everybody was really cool, like role playing and doing a bunch of like cool stuff and like avoiding combat as much as possible. But I had one guy who built his adept to be like a swords master who wants to prove himself in combat. And so all he wanted to do is have one fight every time where he could just challenge himself against, the biggest, baddest opponent. And every time the group decided like, no, we can avoid this combat, he got visibly upset like that there's not going to be any combat in this.
Yeah,
So
I think as a GM, I would really just want to find some way to throw them in extra combat somehow that,
right.
I don't know, even if it just comes down to like just out of character saying, all right, come on guys, this is you've done all the clever, sneaky and social stuff. This guy wants to use his sword. Don't frag this up for him. I mean, I think it's okay to just step back and say that, all right? Because this guy needs a sword fight. Let's make sure he gets a sword fight.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is though, like that idea of I am the combat guy and I am the talking person and I am the this, that, and that, I'm the hacking person. What that does is that starts segmenting people into like their own separate, mini games is a term that you used, right? Where everyone's just kind of, this is the part that's supposed to be for me. But then the problem is, as a collaborative group, you're all making decisions toward what the most effective use of the entire group is. And if it's not you, even though this would on the surface be your thing, I mean, sorry, like, not that I think that that's okay, right?
Sure.
You should never segment yourself in that way where you are only that. But I think that mindset is part of the solo video game RPG experience, right? Where like, I am this role on this team, or I am this person. This is how I solve problems, and I want the game catered to me. No. That's not going to happen. So you need to
I do think there's room for all of that, but I think the most rewarding experience is as you describe, Oz, when you don't just build 5 different silos, right, of skills. I think whenever, like, you remember in Leverage, right? I don't know if you guys have seen this, right? Leverage, the
I've
TV
seen,
show.
yes.
But like in the first episode, right? Like you have people who are only good in one very particular thing. By the end of the series, they are all trying each other's roles out, right? And like doing really fine at them, right? So I think that's probably, well, I don't know exactly what I'm saying there, but I do think it's more fun when you have multiple people doing multiple things as a group versus just the silo mentality.
I super rarely make a Shadowrun character that is only one thing. I always like to have multiple roles. I think T is one of the first ones in a long time. We're like, nope, this is a troll that's going to kick an ass.
But nobody cares that T can kick ass. Everybody loves T because of his role playing.
Right? Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I hope that I don't actually know if that helped at all. But
I mean, the question was, how do you balance technical combat and story-driven encounters? And we just like went off on the.
I don't try to balance them. I try to balance a good player experience that gives people chances to do things, but also makes good narrative sense.
I think
hopefully has a chance for an occasional sword fight.
I think the two things are different, right? How to balance tactical combat and story-driven versus how to handle a guy who's going to quit. Because they're not getting their way. Just talk to your people, I guess, in a generative way. But if they're not willing to like bend because the needs of the other group, then it's not much you can.
I mean, that's a really great point. If you talk to your players and you keep checking in with them, like, hey, how did this combat feel? And they give you feedback saying, we'd like to do X, Y, Z. Then you can start incorporating that. Like, it's not just on you to read the room and guess. You have to get their input too,
Yeah.
because all of you are having fun. And if you're the one that's in charge of creating all of these scenarios, you better, I assume that if you're going to spend hours crafting it and getting your stat blocks ready and your maps ready and all that, that you're providing the most fun experience that you can.
Yeah, let me say one final thing. The groups that I am playing with now, and the groups that I've been playing with the last few years, if I were to say, like, if the entire group wanted to be like hardcore technomancers and all they wanted to do was like do matrix runs, and that they formed a group to do matrix runs, and then I showed my ass up and I'm like, I want to be a crow shaman. For a fact, I know that every single person that I'm currently playing with would be like, okay, well then GM, like, how do we make this happen? How do we allow the crow shaman to be a part of our weird technomancer team? And how do we take them along in our matrix runs? I really, really would hesitate about playing with somebody who says, no, I need it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not interested enough about I don't care about the other player enough to say it's okay that they want what they want, and I want to help them get what they want as well. So I guess just the coolest thing to do is to always, not as a GM, right, but as a player, always be concerned about what the other players want to do as well. You know what I mean? And just maybe don't play with people who don't care about you.
I also want to say, though, and I just want to throw out there that if you're joining a gaming group and their way of playing and doing things just is not fun for you, and you tried and it's just not working out, you're not an asshole for just leaving to do something else, as long as you're not an asshole about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, don't. The other thing is true too, right? Like, as a player, if everybody else wants to do one thing and you're the guy who just needs their way, you don't need to do that. You can just find another group.
Yeah. This kind of goes back to that interview we had about improv with the improv teacher, with my improv professor, where it's, and I think it's a kind of a recurring theme with us whenever these questions get asked is the most important thing is to be worried and concerned about what making other people at the table look good. Because if that's the case, right, like everything that you said is exactly what went down. Everyone was like, okay, well, this person wants to do this with their character. Like, this is what they've brought in. How do we help them do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it's so much fun when it's the person who wants to do the sword fight is the other team members are, all right, hey, this is your chance to have a sword fight.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Sick them loose. Yeah.
Yeah. Damien in chat says he's been a Shadowrun fan for ages. Inspired him to move to Seattle when he was young. Hasn't played since 3rd edition, but picked up 6th and is looking to GM a game. But he says we've been a great source of information for him. So great work. So thank you, Damien. Thank you for the encouragement. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And also thank you to Nabruic for that awesome question.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Let me see. I think we're not going to do too many. I had a couple of backups just in case, but I think we're out of time. Yeah.
Can I promote a couple things?
Please do. Yeah.
Yes.
This Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for 2 hours. Join us as we continue with episode 2 of our MechWarrior Destiny actual play. It's a battle mech heist, and the security drone is on its way. So that's awesome. This Tuesday, and you have time to check out how the first episode went if you want on this very YouTube channel. So please do if you like, or just join us and jump in. You don't have to know what happened before. We'll recap, we'll roll some dice. It's a MechWarrior Destiny and narrative-driven RPG in the BattleTech and MechWarrior universe. And that's going to be great. Also, this Saturday, a role-playing game that I wrote and created as part of the Zine Quest 2 of 2020 with Kickstarter. It's is a Funny Freakout, and it's going to be played live on the Rem Alterni's Twitch channel this Saturday. Sorry, I forget which time. I would check out Rem Alternus on Twitch. They do a bunch of cool tabletop RPG stuff, and good friends of the channel here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna be doing the first live video actual play of my first ever self-published RPG, which is a tabletop role-playing game about playing as a TV crew trying to pull off a horror comedy prank show.
Is that exciting, Cliff, to like have your RPG be actual played on somebody else's network? That seems like it would be a really exciting thing.
It feels like a milestone. Yeah, it is exciting.
Fantastic. I'm excited for you.
Awesome.
And yeah, I made this game because I thought Zine Quest sounded like a cool thing to do. It had been like running around in my head for a while. This idea of kind of spawned from the idea of like almost every role-playing game I've ever seen, like the core way of doing things and solving the problem is fighting the bad guys with the monsters. And so I wanted a role-playing game that had no influence at all for combat. If there's any violence that happens, it's a bad thing that you don't even roll dice for, it's just a narration. The point of the game is to manage the weirdness and how cool and fun the prank is, to balance that with how suspicious the mark is that it's a prank, or maybe not want to make them feel too badly, because this is scary stuff. Maybe you want to kind of end things
hurt them
with the best possible experience. And there's also a taking risk mechanic that lets you re-roll dice, but also at the narrative drawback of cutting some corners or taking some extra risk to make this happen. So it's a nice, wholesome RPG, very loosely based off of Powered by the Apocalypse system. And it's also designed as a kind of like a party game feel. Like it takes about an hour to play through it, start to finish for a session. And I'd like to imagine people playing this as a group in their houses in some distant future when such gatherings become possible.
Right.
I love that. I've been actually really interested in like these low prep, quick to play, one shot, sit down and like just go kind of RPGs, because when Hurricane Ada knocked out my power this week for 2 days, I was just like, I need something to play with my husband. And I'm like, maybe I could find some stuff. And actually, that inspired me to. It wasn't this week. It wasn't this week. It was a week ago. It was last
time
week. Time is irrelevant now. Inspired me to actually run one of them for us. So I'm going to hype it now, even though this is a little bit ways away. Opti, Scrim, and I will be playing The Quiet Year. It's going to be December 8th. So it's still a ways away, but I just wanted to
just
bring
the three of us?
Just
How
the
exciting.
three of us. Yeah, it's a small group.
Oh, you guys are two of my favorite role players.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So The Quiet Year is it's a map drawing RPG. So we play.
Is that by Buried Without Ceremony?
Yes, it is. Yeah, they're great.
I love them. Picked up one of their books at Gen Con this last year, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And that just opened me up to this whole other world of indie RPGs and what RPGs could even be. So brilliant.
Yes. So this game, and what I especially love about it is that it can be very audience interactive, because we play as players collectively, the collective well-being of a community, and we plan the community together as like a year passes. It's like a post-war community, and we draw what we come up with onto the map. But we get like presented with dilemmas from a deck of cards constantly that we have to build this map from. And so we would love to have our audience also weigh in on these dilemmas and help us out. So
That sounds awesome. I'm excited about it.
and by the end, we'll have a nice big tapestry map that we can look back on and say, oh God, what have we done?
Nice.
Well, hey, everybody.
Hey, wait a minute. I have my third piece of news.
Blarg, yeah.
Blarg, yes. I'll make it quick. All right, so
please
Oz
do.
did a thing about Morkborg on this channel a while back, and I was inspired by their third-party license idea and about my son's recent obsession with the classic Doom games. and I've created a sort of a Morkborg hack that is a essentially like a sci-fi Doom-inspired PC meat grinder OSR game with roguelite mechanics and also GM-less if you want to play it that way. And I've been tossing the playtest doc around to a few people who are interested. And yeah, if you want to reach out to me on the Shadowcasters Network Discord server, I'd be happy to include you. I'm looking for feedback and playtesting because I think I like the ideas I've come up with to adapt this. It sounds like fun. And one of the things, I've never seen a role-playing game to incorporate something like roguelite mechanics, which is like a PC or video game term, which means it's a brutal game where your characters die, but you kind of earn things that can improve your next playthroughs, and it encourages replayability. So one of the ways this works is if you achieve certain objectives, you get objective points, and if you die, or when you die, when you bring a new character back, you get to spend those objective points, use them or lose them, on improvements for your next character.
Ooh, I like that. That's interesting. I'm like, I started reading. I'm going to continue reading, but because I was like so focused on getting this stream ready, plus my segment about Bluebeard's Bride. So that's my next read. I'm very excited.
Oh, and what's been so frustrating is like as soon as I send out the document, I thought of like 3 big things I wanted to change already. So I think I'm going to set up a Discord server for it, invite people to that so I can post the most recent doc on that and people can share feedback and talk about it in one place.
And update notes.
So keep an eye out for that. So I'm going to be doing things with it because I think it's cool and fun, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
I think people will like it.
Yep. And
Fantastic.
also, another thing to look out for once we have a date is a lot of us, us 4 plus many of our cast members from different actual plays will be getting together to play Among Us live on stream. So if you've ever seen that video
Christmas
game,
Day.
No, dear God, no.
Really?
No.
No, just to run that out there.
I don't remember agreeing to that.
At some point, so keep an eye out for news on that because that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. So, without any other announcements, which I'm totally open to, but hearing none, thank you everybody so much for being here with us on our Shadowcasters weekly thing that we do, the Shadowcasters Live. I hope you enjoyed all of the segments. Hope you enjoyed the live chat. You are always welcome, and as much or little feedback as you want to put in chat along the way, we will do our best to interact with you. You are the reason that we do this. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to be here with you, and we will see you next time. This is the Shadowcasters signing off.
Bye.